even if it's just for like 1 or 2 minutes a day, and you do it regularly, I think you'll find all sorts of benefits. And it's hard to know what those benefits will be. There's some like
On personally, when I am getting a little bit burnt out, I notice myself practicing meditation more, for example, and that's when I really find the value of meditating.
You can do mindfulness meditation. There's other forms of meditation too. Then also you can increase your present moment awareness, right, in a non-judgmental way, in informal ways too. It doesn't just have to be like a sitting meditation. Or mindfulness programs have been studied in academic institutions just a bit, but not delivered online and exactly like what we're doing.
Welcome everyone, my name is Mark Montalban. I'm your host for this MindfulText Perspectives podcast. I'm here with James Pann. James Pann is an associate professor, program evaluator, and psychologist who specializes in evaluating health, human service, and educational programs. He's also an avid mindfulness and meditation practitioner, so we're excited to have him here on our show. James, tell us a little bit about yourself and your work.
Well, I'm a professor. I teach at Nova Southeastern University, work with graduate students, undergraduate students on all sorts of projects, and also teach them in various classes. Mostly my area is in program evaluation, which means the process, the approach of helping organizations determine how well their programs are doing, what the value of those programs are, and how to make those programs better, those initiatives, whatever they might be. And so when I say programs, I mean, it could be like after school program to like a court program, something that's an initiative that's going on in a jail. It doesn't really matter. I'm interested more in the method and working with organizations that help people in all sorts of settings. So I do that. And also, I'm interested also in mindfulness, and we've been doing a study that we're working on. You're part of as well. MindfulText is a part of, and interested in where the two kind of meet: evaluation, my discipline, and mindfulness intervention. So, writing a paper on that. I have also a blog post coming up on that I'll share with you all. And that's my background. I'm a psychologist. I started off as a psychologist and started evaluating programs at the beginning of my career, and didn't realize that that's what I was doing. But my first programs that I worked with were outdoor kind of programs, like Outward Bound, New York City Outward Bound, North Carolina Outward Bound. Those were the first. This was my dissertation. The first organizations that I tried to help with what they were doing, and so I stayed with that. And rather than go more like in the counseling realm that a lot of psychologists will do, a lot of counseling and clinical psychologists will. I'm a counseling psychologist. I went more on a different route, which is towards the evaluation discipline, and that's what I've been doing since then. So I teach evaluation, I teach research, methods, statistics, that kind of stuff. Yep.
We kind of met serendipitously over LinkedIn, but we connected pretty quickly and started to work together in an interesting way, where we were integrating MindfulText, which is basically an SMS texting program, into the mindfulness class that you were helping lead at NSU.
Yeah, we connected over LinkedIn through the magic of the LinkedIn algorithm or whatever it was. I don't remember. And then we talked, and I found it to be interesting what you all were doing. And at the time, I didn't know that we would be able to work together in some way. It wasn't immediate, but pretty soon after COVID started, our group wanted to figure out a way to help as many students as possible, people at the university. So, and we had to do it in a way that we felt like would be very accessible. So we started a program called it's the SRAT program. So stress reduction and attention training program. And so we started that, and as we were kind of, getting going with that, we thought, well, first of all, it's going to have to be online. It's going to have to be something that is accessible, that's doable. And so we wanted to take something that's sort of shorter, more kind of doable for students than like mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is kind of considered to be like one of the standards in mindfulness programs. And so we created something that it's, hour a week. It requires daily practice, but a shorter daily practice, 20 minutes, something like that, depending on the week, daily practice. And it was offered online, and then also supported by the text messages that were provided by MindfulText. And so, we brought that all together in a way to kind of support our students. We knew it was going to be a stressful time, and our faculty and our staff too joined. We ran four cohorts, and we want to run some more now, and just really, really excited about it. And we have some interesting, initial findings. We hope to send out a paper sooner than later, and kind of get going with that piece. But that's kind of like the initial, that's how we met, and that's kind of the beginning of what we were doing. Mindfulness programs have been studied in academic institutions just a bit, but not delivered online and exactly like what we're doing, and not with our sort of curriculum, the same format, and certainly not with texting. And so we thought that could be something that would be accessible, doable, and would be helpful. And that was my experience of starting to bring in a mindfulness practice in my own life, and then getting into that literature and learning more about it, and starting to bringing that into my professional work. And so that's why we wanted to initiate this and move forward and do the study, do a research study. So in implementing it with the 4 cohorts, we actually collected data before and after, and we looked to see what happened with participants and so forth. But mindfulness was something that was it was something that was really helpful for me, and that's why I sort of brought it in and thought this is something that could be helpful for others, and it seems, and the research supports that, I think, notion pretty well.
What's your experience been with people that haven't really been exposed to mindfulness, and you or maybe your organization starting to share those ideas around mindfulness and meditation with them?
People have all sorts of conceptions and ideas about what it is. Some people think it's a very, esoteric, kind of a, strange or religious thing, or tied to Eastern religion, or something like that. And so I think it just depends. Other people have an understanding and experience with it. I think people in the program that come into the SRAT program, there's a variety of backgrounds and experiences. But I've led meditations at faculty meetings, other things like that. And some people are very open to it. Others will just kind of shut down and not really be open to it at all, which is fine. And I think it's something that it's helpful for some people, and not for everyone. And so it being, it's helpful to define what mindfulness is. There's definitely like a long tradition of mindful practice in many spiritual traditions, certainly in Eastern ones, in Buddhism and Hinduism as well. But John Kabat-Zinn, who's the MBSR sort of, the person who started MBSR in the late 70s, defined it roughly as moment by moment awareness of the present moment in a non-judgmental way, and oftentimes like to get leading to gaining insight, or more ethical behavior, or other sorts of outcomes that are intrinsically positive. People have all sorts of understandings of it, and some people are sort of ready for it. Some people are not. I think for me, I was interested in meditation for a long time, probably for 15 years, maybe more. And I just never got around to it. I never did it. I never took the time to do it. And I didn't really understand. I conflated the two. I didn't really know what mindfulness was. And I thought, well, meditation is something I want to do. And then with learning meditation, then I started to understand mindfulness is, which is, something that you can do mindfulness meditation. There's other forms of meditation too. But then also you can increase your present moment awareness, right, in a non-judgmental way, in informal ways too. It doesn't just have to be like a sitting meditation or that kind of thing. So people come to with all sorts of conceptions and all sorts of ideas, and people can kind of look at it and see what the value it is and make a decision and decide to pursue it. Others, maybe are kind of thrown off by it or don't like it or whatever it is. It just depends. So it's just a mixed bag. But I think the people who end up coming into our program are more open into it. They're not being forced to come in, so they're coming in. But they also come in with various ideas around what it is. Yeah.
How did you first get into it? What made you start to get interested, and how did do you have a formal practice now, or is something you lean back on? Personally, when I am getting a little bit burnt out, I notice myself practicing meditation more, for example, and that's when I really find the value of meditating. Mindfulness is something that I realized I was practicing after a lot of time. And I think it's something that a lot more people are practicing now during these times. We're much more mindful of the things we touch, the door handles, things we're bringing into our house because of the state we're in right now. So I think we're all actually practicing mindfulness more so. But when did you start to put those two together of mindfulness? And, I'd love to hear about how you started mindfulness and meditation.
I was interested in meditation, but I never practiced it in any rigorous way. So I had some sort of vague ideas around what it was. I did it a bit, but it wasn't until probably, maybe like 5-6 years ago. So I've been doing it for about 5.5 years. So when I was just experiencing like a lot of anxiety and I just, I realized I needed to do something else. And I was like at the point where like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. And so I actually went to see a nurse practitioner who was a teacher, taught, so actually she's a nurse, but she's a mindfulness teacher. And she taught me, I did like 6 or 7 sessions with her. And that was a great way to start. And then I started using an app, Insight Timer. And I did different things that helped. You've talked about how BJ Fogg's like work around like building habits, which I've learned about more recently. I was interested. I've seen other models that are similar about building habits, but that's really, I kind of like engineered things without knowing about the habit building like literature and that kind of stuff, kind of so that I could do it. And I started very small, and I used the app, and I created sort of, I gamified it a little bit. Like I didn't want to miss a day because the app would, it would reset. I had like stuff set up in my office where it was like ready, like the bench and just everything else, where it was like first thing I saw in the morning. I associated it with like when I had, like I really enjoy tea in the morning. So I had the tea and then I would have that. So I like sort of associated the two. So on a normal day, weekday, I do it every morning. Weekends, I tend to do it in the afternoon or evening. So I shuffle things up. Most people will do it consistently in the morning. I think a lot of people. Then at some point, like as I started to study and learn about it more, I realized that, there's many different practices, and that mindfulness is, and then I read a lot and been studying as well, all sorts of sources, and just realizing that it's not, that it's not just about meditation. There's other ways. Just, noticing what you're doing in the moment. It could be right now, or it could be like every time you climb the stairs or open a door, you make a point to just, be in your skin and just notice what you're doing. Because so much of my time is spent, in my head, out in space, not really being where I'm at. And then I started to realize that like kind of more in the last, few years, really. And it's a practice. Something happens that, I think slowly, but it's like a gradual thing. But for me, it's been in kind of like little bumps of movement, like sort of. So, there's a slope, but it comes like in like steps almost. I'll have an insight or something will happen. And, it was helpful to go on a retreat. I went on a short retreat, like a 3-day 3.5 day retreat at the Garrison Institute, New York. And that was really good. And so like those kind of experiences are helpful. Yeah. So
I'm just thinking from a perspective of somebody who may not be practicing mindfulness or meditation. And you mentioned this idea of just being aware when you're opening a door handle or when you're eating. And I'm just trying to think about your perspective and even my perspective, like the value of doing that from the onset. I can't explain that myself, but being aware, bringing that awareness with you. Oh, okay. So now I'm thinking about the practice of awareness and how it's useful to bring around with you. And maybe not the experience of opening the door handle might be useful, but the idea of just being aware helps you throughout your day, because there are so many things that happen. For example, if you get a notification that might trigger you, if you start to feel an emotion that is also triggering, and you have that awareness, you're able to catch if that emotion or that triggering thought takes you somewhere else. So just thinking out loud about the value of this awareness of being mindful when you're opening a door. It's not necessarily about the door itself and being present for the door, but it's more about this practice of awareness and how it can help you through the ups and downs.
Yeah, it's like a self-reflective, like a metacognitive like strategy, like where you're aware of like, what you're thinking, how you're feeling. So you can act in a more helpful way. And it's not that you're, not going to, it's not that I don't get upset or I don't like, act in ways that I realize are just not helpful. But the idea is that when I do that, maybe I do it a little bit less, but also that I just sort of notice it much quicker, right? So just sort of being aware and and so just that practice of, if it's the door handle or whatever it is, just noticing what you're doing, noticing your your body, noticing your emotions, your thoughts, your cognitions, noticing any beliefs that you have in situations when encountering, when speaking, when interacting with people, any biases that might come up, and being really honest with yourself. And there's a number of ways you can do that. You can ask self-reflective questions, reflective questions, which are questions designed to get you to pause and to really think about, okay, what's really going on here. So an example, like in evaluation work, we can. There was a great article by Ronald Epstein, or actually him and his colleagues have done a lot of work in medicine around mindfulness programs for physicians, and they describe in one of their papers, at least one of their papers, reflective questions that they try to teach, like beginning physicians and in their physician training program. I don't think it's just for residents, but I think they work with others as well, other physicians, so that they can really just identify when when they're going off in a way that's not helpful, jumping to conclusions when they're engaging in bias, in the different sort of like a bias, attributing, jumping to specific conclusions around what might be happening in a situation, what might be causing an illness, what the actual, the underlying problems are, all these kind of things, and how we can use that in evaluation, that kind of thinking, asking those kind of questions in our work as evaluators, asking about our own, do I feel a sense of discomfort right now? Like, how am I feeling about this evaluation, about this work I'm doing? Our feelings, just noticing feelings, because sometimes those feelings can be indications of like, is there, am I engaging in some sort of like cognitive dissonance? Am I, am I kind of like trying, fooling myself? Am I uncomfortable? Am I acting in a way that's unhelpful? Really being like self-reflective and honest, which is very difficult to do. And it's something I've been thinking about more, and it's in that paper that, or it's in a paper that we're going to be publishing, sending out for review, another group of us, evaluators. But then also I have a blog post, so you'll be able to kind of, check that out. So there's other techniques, reflective questions, for instance. There's, just sitting meditation, standing, walking mindfully. There's, like you said, the door handle technique. Every time you touch a door handle, you think you just, come into your body and you feel, oh, I'm here. This is me, versus in your thoughts and lost in your head. Yeah. And there's other things as well. And for me, it's a process. Like I'm still, at the beginning. So I'm learning a lot as well. So.
And we haven't even gotten to the non-judgment part yet, which is the second half of the equation of mindfulness. But even just practicing, discussing our thoughts on awareness is going to be helpful for people. All the different ways that you can be aware is going to be helpful with, like you were mentioning, are we thinking biased? Are there things that are influencing the way that we're speaking or reacting that we can be aware of first before we take action in ways that we can be helpful? So I really loved your discussion around how those thoughts come together and how awareness plays into other aspects of our lives. And
one thing I wanted to say was, I've been reading the most recent edition of by Mistakes Were Made, but not by me, by Tavris and Aronson. They write about cognitive dissonance theory, which is why I mentioned that before. And one of the things they say that's important is, like, for people to, in non-judgmental vein, is like to realize that if we make mistakes, it doesn't mean that we're bad. Like, mistakes are okay. And even though they say, like, people say that in our society, but no one really believes it. A lot of people just really don't believe it, so that it becomes, so what happens then, if you make a mistake and then you're bad, right? There's something wrong with you. Then a lot of times we're going to defend against the fact that we made a mistake, like even deny it or not examine it and learn from it. So that sort of fundamental sort of mindset shift. And I do an interview with Kylie Hutchinson, makes me remind that interview where she talks a lot about that, because her and some of her colleagues, her evaluators, wrote about evaluation mistakes. And initially when I saw it, I was like, why are they focusing on that? But then I got it. And I think that that's a really important thing. It's like, it's essential to feel okay. It's okay to make mistakes, because then it allows us to examine those mistakes and learn from them. And so there's a lot of things kind of playing out there, but I think that's another point I wanted to make. Yeah.
Awesome. Awareness is such a big topic, and I love how we're discussing it here. And I want to be mindful of our time as well. So for our last question, James, what's the biggest takeaway you'd like for our audience?
Well, I think, I think, like, one thing is, for me, it was really hard to get started, really hard to kind of get going with a practice. And so I do like the PJ Fogg website, and the one of his, I don't know if he has more than one book, but there's one book that I saw the summary of, and I've watched some of the videos. I'm starting to learn about his approach, and James Clear has a nice approach also. And I think you can use that, like I was saying before, to just, start the practice. Because if you just start, even if it's just for like 1 or 2 minutes a day, and you do it regularly, I think you'll find all sorts of benefits. And it's hard to know what those benefits will be. There's some like typical benefits that you get, but you will get some. And it's not just about attention or about like regulating emotion or mood or, those kind of things, which can be beneficial, but also you never know. I mean, it could be also about just sort of understanding, like metaphysically, like more like the nature of our, of our lives, of our existence, kind of focusing on that. It can be very pragmatic things, like I said before, about like managing anxiety, helping build focus and concentration, attention. So there's all sorts of benefits that come from it. And I think starting easy, small, very realistically. Gamifying it in a way like using an app where you track, and maybe have a community online or something that you're kind of, you're seeing, who else is meditating, and they see how you're meditating, and it becomes a little bit more fun. There's Insight Timer, like I mentioned before, and there's a slew of, there's many other apps as well. And then, using something like Mindful Text can be helpful too, just as a reminder or other, additional information to support practice. So just starting very modestly is enough. That's great. It's like that with exercise or changing eating too. I mean, a lot of things are like that. So that's important to note. And I think mindfulness practice and meditation practice is similar. So, yeah.
Okay, James, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for sharing your perspective, and we'll catch you all next time.
All right, great.